Right. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm hoping that you are benefiting something from these videos, which I constantly post on this channel. The purpose of me posting these videos is just that it's gonna help somebody else who is possibly new in the profession, or somebody who is trying to find their way, find their feet, or navigate through the profession, either as a newly qualified social worker, or as a social work student, or as a seasoned practitioner, but they just want some bit of motivation, some bit of inspiration from social work content. So I don't claim to be a guru in all the topics that I do deliver, or the topics that I do post on this platform, but it's just from my own learning and from my own experiences, and hoping that one day it may help somebody out there. So thank you so much for tuning in. And today's topic, I'm just gonna talk or give you 5 tips of how I think you can build your resilience in social work. 5 tips of how you can build your resilience in social work, or how you can develop what we would call thick skin in our profession as social work. First and foremost, I think the most important thing which I need to put out there is the fact that social work is not for the faint-hearted. That's a realistic sentiment to put out there. Um, it's quite demanding, it's quite fast paced, depending with which specialization you are practicing in, but it's also a rewarding profession at the end of the day, especially when you happen to see the service users you are supporting have actually moved on from one stage to another stage, from A to point B, and it's actually quite fulfilling if you look at it that way. You need to actually make sure that you develop some soft skills that will enable you to actually be more resilient within this profession. It's a profession which can easily take its toll on your well-being. So it's important for you to be developing what we call, would simply term, a thick skin, for you to maintain positive mental health, to maintain your effectiveness as a professional in this profession. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that by you developing thick skin, or you developing this resilience, you are becoming insensitive, or you are becoming detached to the realities of the profession. But it's just that it will help you to actually emotionally handle the stressors associated with our profession, or the criticisms which are inherent in the job. It could be criticism from other professionals, or it could be criticisms from the service users as well. So point number one, or tip number one, is for you to understand and accept the nature of the job. You need to accept and understand the nature of the job, to say that it's quite demanding, it's quite fast paced, it requires more than you just working a 9 to 5 job. It requires you to use all the other skills that you can think of, in terms of your listening skills, even your English language skills as well. So it's a profession which requires you also to go through what we would call vicarious trauma, because you are always constantly re-traumatized, always dealing with traumatic incidents sometimes, and you are working with vulnerable people. You have to navigate some bureaucratic systems. You also have to face criticisms, not only from your clients, but also from colleagues and from the public, when something else happens, or when a big incident happens, or for example a child is hurt and it's in the press, or a child has been it has led to a child dying, and it's in the press. There's all these things constantly going on in terms of criticisms from from other professionals, or from the public, and all that. So you need to be recognizant of the fact that it's quite a challenging environment, and feedback is part of who you should be as a social worker, as it helps you to develop as a professional. So by you accepting these realities, it helps you to mentally prepare on the challenges that you will face as a social worker on a daily basis. It's also important for you to remember that the role is there to provide support and to advocate for the rights of those who may not necessarily be able to advocate for themselves. So by the nature of that job, it draws criticism towards your door. It brings criticism towards the way you would have handled a particular case, for example. and in social work, I always tell people that social work it's a profession where if you give the same case to two different professionals, they may handle it the same, largely, but they may also handle it differently if you look at the minute details of what they are actually doing on that particular case. So it's important for you to know that you need to understand and accept the nature of the job that you'll be doing. That's tip number one. Tip number two, which is also linked to the title of this video, is you need to build some emotional resilience. You need to be able to adapt to the stress of the job. You need to be able to adapt to the adversities which comes about with the profession that you are in, so that you can easily become overwhelmed. But I think you need to have some level of resilience for you to be able to last long in this profession. And for you to be able to develop this level of resilience, it's important for you to actually be cognizant of the practice and guidance of the organization of the local authority that you're working in, because that will enable you to handle your cases efficiently and be able and also know that you need to be working within specific time scales when you are progressing your work. I always tell people as well that even though you are employed as a 9 to 5 job, but it's rare that you would only clock your work, your hours 9 to 5. Sometimes you have to log in odd hours of the day. Sometimes you have to log in even after work or a few hours before work starts for you to be able to be on top of your work. It's about how you plan your work to make sure that you're actually on top of your work. You need to be able to also practice what we call self-care, making sure that you exercise, you eat healthy, you drink lots of fluids, and you engage in activities that will enable you to rejuvenate your body and rejuvenate your mind. Exercise, I spoke about exercises. Think about the hobbies that you do. People love driving, taking leisurely drives during the weekend, or spending time with loved ones, reading. It could be watching movies or watching YouTube channels, all things like that. That can help you to also recharge and maintain a positive outlook for yourself. That's quite important. You also need to develop some healthy coping mechanisms. Deep breathing exercises, speak about mindfulness, speak about journaling, speak about techniques that can help you manage your stress and stay grounded. And you also need to seek support. Most of the local authorities that we work for have got what we call workplace options. You need to be tapping into those resources for you to develop some level of resilience and be able to cope and build some emotional resilience as a professional, and also which will enable you to withstand some of the pressures of this profession. Tip number 3 is for you to learn from criticism. Whether it's negative or positive criticism, you need to learn from it. And ways of how you can learn from criticism is for you to work with what we call the Joaris window model of self-reflection and criticism. For you to be able to actually know the things that you think you are doing well, but what others may actually perceive in terms of what you are doing, what you may not necessarily be doing well. So you need to think about that as well. You may get criticism not only from your colleagues within the team, but also criticism from the professionals that you're working with on particular cases, or criticisms from the young people that you're working with, or from criticism from the service users that you're working with. So you need to stay open-minded, to approach the criticism with an open mind, viewing it as an opportunity for you to grow, and also but not as a personal attack. Sometimes obviously there will be some personal attacks, but sometimes you don't need to take all those things personally, because remember, you're also dealing with service users. Sometimes we've got mental health issues, so you need to separate things which are personal from the professional understanding of things that you are actually going through. And where you are not clear in terms of what this criticism is all about, you may be able to seek clarification, and for you to be able to reflect on all those things that you have been, the things that have been pointed out about you, and be able to move forward. Actually, that's how we can learn as professionals. It's all about accepting criticism, reflect on it, and be able to move on from it and learn from it overally. Point number 4 is to set boundaries. When I talk about setting boundaries, I'm talking about making sure that this is essential for maintaining your good health and preventing burnout. It's important for you to protect your emotional and physical well-being by making sure that you're not overworked, by also making sure that you actually work within your limits. There are things that you know as a social worker, this is beyond your scope of practice, refer to the appropriate agencies. There are things that you know that the workload is coming to a point where it's not sustainable. You need to have a conversation with your manager, but also being mindful of the potential impact that may have on your team as well. You need to be able to communicate clearly and ensure that your boundaries are appropriate, not only for yourself, but for your colleagues and for your service users as well. For example, you need to make sure that you stick to a certain pattern of working hours and not overwork yourself. I'm not saying don't log, odd hours of the day. Sometimes some people find it quite helpful to actually log in when everybody else is out of the system or is not sending emails that are disturbing and so forth. But you need to make sure that you are not overworking yourself, or you are not putting so much emotional burden on yourself as an individual. And you also need to practice saying no when you know that you don't have capacity to be able to do things. You need to understand and learn to say no to further work that can be lumped upon you. So that's something else which we need to be developing as well. Point number 5, which is going to be the last in these, in these tips which I'm going to be sharing today, is to focus on the positives. There is all these negatives that come up when something goes wrong in our profession, but also need to focus on the positives, strengthen those positives, and talk about them in your team meetings. Acknowledge the positives within your teams. And it is a challenging profession, but in as much as there is so much negativity, there is also positive things that people are doing. We need to be grateful, in terms of things that we are doing well, and we need to be, actually manipulating those positives to make sure that it actually helps or boosts our morale in the work that we do. So it's also important to embrace those small victories through celebrations that you can do within the team. It could be team lunch, it could be small things like team away day, and all those kind of things that you can also, focus on really as an individual. It's also important for you to even keep what we call a gratitude journal, where you may jot down, some positive experiences in your profession that you can also share with others later on. Successes in terms of cases that were challenging that you've managed to turn around and have had positive, feedback from, and celebrate those small little victories within your team as well, and appreciate all the positive aspects of the work that we are doing as well. It's also important for you to stay connected to yourself, to your purpose. Know why you entered into this profession. Know why you wanted to be a social worker. Remind yourself of all the positive things that you had in your mind when you thought about getting into this profession. And you also need to think about reflection on how passionate you were when you started in the profession, and also stay motivated and stay resilient. Think about things that can also bring your spirits up, so that you can also stay connected to your passion, stay connected to your purpose as a social worker. So with these few nuggets, I hope that I've helped somebody, and you can stay connected to your purpose as a social worker. And for those who haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, so that when I post, you'll be the first person to know. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Thanks so much.